I'm Dave Lieber. I'm the Watchdog columnist for the Dallas Morning News, and welcome to Watchdog Nation headquarters. This is the room where I've been working on my stories, been working on my play. I've written a new play, working on a new book. And I also have a guest with me here today on my hair. I haven't had a haircut since February, so I kind of look a little out of control. But I want to start off by making a reference to my columnist hero, Pete Hamill. He's the reason that I got into journalism. He's the reason I'm here. He died this morning at age 85. So I'd like to show you a picture. He autographed this for me. Pete Hamill, 85 years old. So I'm dedicating this session to him. And I hope you don't mind, because I got to tell him how much he meant to me when I brought him to Grapevine, Texas in 2005 for a columnist conference. I gave him the Ernie Pyle Lifetime Achievement Award. So it's a little bit discombobulating. So we're going to learn how to be super consumers today. We're going to learn how to be watchdogs. And it all comes down to this guy, Buck. Ask for Buck. Without Buck, I wouldn't even be sitting here. I wouldn't be the watchdog. Because, you can't go to watchdog school. There's no Watchdog Academy. I didn't get a license to be a watchdog. This is the overture, by the way. I used to sing in the Metropolitan Opera Children's Chorus, so my favorite part was the overture. This is the overture. But I didn't know how to be the watchdog, because I got picked in 2005. I was picked at the Star Telegram to be the watchdog, and for the first 2 years, I didn't really know what I was doing. I got so many letters from people with so many problems, I couldn't help them. But the way that I figured out how to do it was to make a big, giant mistake. And I made a big mistake in the roofing. We all know that roofing in Texas is a really traumatic thing, and that's where Buck comes in. The roof went bad in a hailstorm in 2007, and I knew right away that, as a watchdog, getting a roofer is like a super, super difficult thing. Because I had written stories about people who had gotten burned by roofers. And so I was scared. I knew you have to do all these steps. You have to check the BB rating. You have to see if you check them on the internet. You have to check them if they get permits pulled at City Hall. You have to get bids. You have to get references, and I just didn't know how I was going to do all that, because I was so busy with the mail that I get a lot of mail from people like you about AT&T and other businesses. So I put it off. And then I went and I asked one of my neighbors who their roofer was, and they said it was a guy named Signature Roofing. So I asked another neighbor who it was, and they said it was Signature Roofing. So I went out and I called Signature, and they came by. They gave me a bid. It was going to cost me a few $1,000s. And I signed the contract without really doing any due diligence. The problem is, on my street where I lived, there were two addresses that were the same. Mine was Drive, and the one behind me was Court, but it's the exact same address. So on the day that the roofer was supposed to come to my house, he showed up at the other guy's house, and he took that guy's roof off and not mine. Can you believe that? So that neighbor comes over to me that night, and he says, "Dave, we have a problem. I got a new roof today, and it's probably was meant to be yours." And we both kind of laughed about it. And then I explained to him that he got a free roof and just forget about it. But I couldn't believe it, that I had hired a moron. And I called the guy up and I started talking to him. And he said he was going to come and do my roof because Signature Roofing, I had his signature. He had my signature on his contract. So I've gotten to an argument with him, and I finally figured out what his point of vulnerability was. He had been doing roofs for 18 years, and he said he'd never had a problem like this before. And I told him I was going to tell everybody about it. I was going to put signs all over the neighborhood saying, "Don't hire Signature Roofing because he'll go to the wrong house." So he says, "Guys like you make me sick." And I was like, yes, I got another chance to get another roofer, because he hung up on me. And so he wasn't holding me to the contract. So I took another shortcut, which I know none of you ever do. And I went and I talked to my insurance agent and I said, hey, do you know any good roofers? And he said, yeah, I know this guy, Sean Tatum Roofing, and of Arlington, go get him. So my neighbor had a sign for Tatum, and it said this on the sign, ask for Buck. So I called up, and Buck comes over. Remember, this is my second chance. And Buck is immediately a friendly, overly friendly guy. He puts his arm around me and says, son, I really like you. I'm going to give you a free roof. And I said, well, how can you give me a free roof? And he said, well, don't worry about it because you got me from the insurance agent, right? So everything's covered. So all I heard was the word free. And I didn't really think about it. But months went by. I signed the contract, and I gave them my insurance check, which you never, ever do. Remember, I learned from my mistakes. So months went by. My wife says to me, you gotta call him. And so I called up, and they said, well, Buck don't work here no more. So I got on the phone with the owner, Tatum, and he says, look, I'm sorry I haven't been out there, but we're having a drought, a rain. The rain put us all back. And I said, well, there was a drought. And he said, yeah, but, when I did have all that rain, it put me back. So I said, okay. So he says he'll come the next month. Next month, he doesn't call. I call again. Nothing. Next month, he's got another excuse. Finally, after like 6 months of this, I really thought I'd lost my deposit. He shows up at my house. He puts the roof on. I get another check from the insurance company, which is the supplementals that he added. I put it on. I give him the check. I got a free roof. I got a free roof. But do you think my story ends there? Because if it did, I wouldn't be here. What happened next is I got a letter from U.S. Bankruptcy Court saying that Tatum has filed bankruptcy. And then I get another letter from the county attorney, Tarrant County District Attorney, saying Tatum is under investigation for fraud. Were you ripped off by him? So I say, no, I got a roof. And the detective said, you're the only one that did. So I went to the bankruptcy hearing, and I saw Tatum face all the people that he had screwed in the bankruptcy. Even though I was on the list of bankruptcy, I'd had a roof, but all these other people got screwed. And so I asked one of the guys who worked for Tatum in the hallway at the end of the hearing, how come Tatum gave me a roof and none of these people got one? And they said, well, Mr. Tatum found out what you do for a living. So he said, we better give this guy a roof before he writes about us in the newspaper before we shut down. I felt terrible because I never take anything from people, but I'd gotten a free roof and I just wanted to rip it off and donate it to a church or something. But then I remembered that Michael Jackson song, one that goes, I'm starting to look with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. So I realized I almost got screwed, suckered out of a roof. I had 2 tries. I blew it. I'm the watchdog, and I still didn't know how to do it right. So I figured out I need to create something that shows people how to be super consumers. I need to first test it on myself, and then if it works, I need to do it for other people and push it out. So I worked on it for a couple of years, and I created Watchdog Nation, which is a consumer rights movement that I've shared with thousands of people. And I've sworn them in as citizens of Watchdog Nation. And basically what it is, it's 5 of the simplest principles. And if you do some of them, you're already a super consumer. If you do all 5, you'll be unstoppable. So we'll go over them. And when we're done, you will be citizens of Watchdog Nation. The reason I do this is because, as you know, the world has changed. Starting around the time that I joined the Watchdog, became the Watchdog in 2005, I noticed that there were more crooks in more areas doing more harm to people than ever before. And so I thought that banks really reflected it, because banks were all of a sudden charging us all these extra charges. You call a bank on the phone and you get some guy in a foreign country and they didn't care about you. And it was just a really hard road to be a consumer, because I began to see that you can't trust anybody. And my mail is so voluminous from folks like you. And it's so depressing because in every area of life, people are getting shafted. So I came up with these 5 basic principles that make up, the main portion of my book, Watchdog Nation. And what these principles are basically all free, take just a few seconds to do, and save your life, essentially. So there's 5, and like I say, some of them you'll do, but when I give one of the 5, I'm going to ring a bell, just so you know that that's one of the important 5, okay? So ready to go. Let's start off with number 1, which is the most basic rule in life, which is just check it out. I started off as a columnist at a newspaper where I wrote a column called Check It Out when I was 21 years old. So if Jif said in a commercial, choosy mothers choose Jif, I basically had to get a panel of moms to have Jiffy, Peter Pan, and Skippy, and see if really Jif was really the choosiest. So that's how I started as a consumer reporter. And then I dropped out of that and did a lot of regular reporting until I came back to the Watchdog. But in that time, something amazing happened that helped us check it out that didn't exist before. And it's represented by this empty box that I use. It's an old antique box, but for the purposes of today, it's the magic Google box. And what I found from all the letters that I received from people is when they get scammed by a company or by a scammer, they probably didn't go to the Google box and make a quick visit. And I didn't go to the Google box before I hired that roofer, Sean Tatum, who went bankrupt and who, by the way, went to prison for fraud. Roofers don't go to prison, but this guy did. And I should have looked him up when I hired him, because that's what the Watchdog says to do. And this is the way you look somebody up. Sean Tatum Roofing, Arlington, Texas, and scam. Sean Tatum Roofing, Arlington, Texas, and ripoff. Sean Tatum Roofing, Arlington, Texas, and reviews and comments and fraud. If I had done that, I would have seen that he was already given some problems to some elderly people in Hearst, and I might have stayed away from him. But, as it was, all I could do later was fire my insurance agent, who actually had recommended that I hire him. So before you bring someone to your house to train your dog, you look them up. Because I did once look up a dog trainer for somebody, and it turned out to be a registered sex offender. You never know what you're going to find. But if you're going to buy a refrigerator at a store, you just don't listen to the salesman and you pick the sales. You type in Frigidaire model 91C3R and Best Buy and problems, and you look it up before you go into the store, before you buy it. My wife was really interested in an LG refrigerator years ago, and right there in the store, I Googled LG refrigerator reviews, repairs, and I showed her there were 1,000 negative comments, and she really wanted that refrigerator, and she said, I sometimes can't stand living with the Watchdog. But I saved her. We got a better refrigerator. So, a lot of times we get these great offers from our friends or to people we know, and we need to type them in and find out what they really are, because other people have written about them. Sometimes we get a postcard that has a phone number on it. We need to type that phone number in and see what it leads to. So check it out. Use the Google box. Rule number 1, the times you don't use the Google box are the times you do get in trouble. I've found that to be the case in my own life. So a friend of mine asked me to go on this great vacation with him. It was all included. The price was great. I looked it up, and right away it showed it was a scam. So number 1, check it out. Number 2 is when you talk to these companies on the phone and you're getting nowhere with them, make them accountable to you and create a power sheet. Let me show you what I mean. Watchdog Nation takes no money. It's free. It takes just a few seconds, but you need to go out and buy a supply. You need to go out and buy this blank sheet of paper. Because what I noticed when I was calling companies was I was writing on the envelope. I was writing on the corners of magazine coupons that fall out of magazines. And I noticed that other people who were disorganized and not on top of things were doing the same thing. So I created this idea of taking a blank sheet of paper and writing power sheet on the top, and then writing the name of the company that you're about to call. This is a company that's giving you some problems. And with me, it's always the same, AT&T. So you dial the number and you get asked all these questions, like what's your name? what's your mother's maiden name, what's your password, what is the date and amount of your last payment, how many tattoos do you have on your backside, whatever questions I ask. And before you start to tell them your answer, you say, hold on, I've got a question for you. And then you ask the one question that these foreign teledesk people hate to be asked by Americans, which is what? I know you know, what is your name? And they don't like to tell you, so they give you a fake name. The guy I talked to once and links his wireless route in India told me his name was Elvis. So I remember, you take your pen and you write down on a piece of paper, Elvis. And he's not worried. He's not worried. Now, the point of this call is when you call these companies, they have 90% of the power and you have 10%, but we're going to quickly make it 50-50. So you've written his fake name on a power sheet, but he doesn't care. Then you say, Elvis, what is your company ID number? And he'll say, I don't need to give you that because I'm going to give you a reference number at the end. And you say, whoa, Elvis, I'm from Texas. And in Texas, we talk to people by their first names and not by their numbers. My name is Dave. What's your name and what's your number? And he'll say, well, okay, my number is 813-444-5525. And you say, okay, give me that again. 8, what's the next number? 1, and you do it real slow. And you go, that's my favorite number. And you'll hear him go, so that's 10 points right now. Now it's 80-20 because he knows you have a sheet of paper with his official reference number on it, but he's still not scared of you at all. And then you go, okay, Elvis, now I need to know where you're located. And he tells you, and you write it down. You let him know, INDIA. That's where your bank, your call center is. Okay, cool, very nice. And then you say, I want you to know that last month I talked to Sheila, and she told me she was going to fix this. I talked to her on March 14th, 2:30 p.m. And he knows you're keeping track. And Sheila said she was going to fix this, and she didn't. Do you know Sheila? Oh, that's right. You guys are in different hemispheres. Okay. So now he's not really scared of you because you're keeping a record, but it's about 70-30. And so here's how you bring it to 50-50. You say, okay, Elvis, I'm now going to tell you my problem. Elvis 235-11445 on August 5th, 2020, over in the India, the office there. And I'm talking to you about my problem. And I want you to know as a courtesy that I'm taping the call for customer quality control. And when he hears you say customer quality control taping, it's immediately 50-50. And he'll say something like, oh, that's okay, Mr. Leiber. I will be happy to help you. And I go, no, it's Leiber. But suddenly he cares about your name because he thinks you're taking a recording. And what these people in these call centers know is that they can get in trouble when Americans play their calls on YouTube or on the web somewhere. So they start to act much, much more respectful. So all you have to say is, yeah, I have your name, I have your number, I know where you are, I'm keeping track of the time, and I want you to know I'm basically taping this call for customer quality control. And that's the 1 out of 100 people that day that maybe say that to him, and that's the only one he cares about. So this power sheet has equalized you with them on the phone. It's pretty simple. So number 2 was make them accountable and make a power sheet. Tell them that you're taping the call and tell them you're keeping a track, okay? All right, so first 2, I know a lot of you do it. Here comes number 3. Number 3, find their point of vulnerability. Find their point of vulnerability. Now, that's what I did with the roofer that I was talking to from Signature Roofing. He told me that he had been in the business 18 years and he had never had this problem. So I knew that his vulnerability was that he was proud of not having done this. So I told him that I was going to take signs and put them all over the neighborhood. Wherever he had a sign, I was going to stick another sign there that said that, watch out for this guy because he can't read a map. Now, I had no intention of doing that, but my lance had poked his armor right at his vulnerable point, and he hung up on me. He gave up, and I got out of the contract. So how do you find the point of vulnerability? Well, the point of vulnerability is defined by me as the one thing about your situation that the company doesn't want you to know about, because if you know it, it gives you power. So how do you find the point of vulnerability? You go back to the magic Google box and you tell the Google box your problem. You say, hi, Google, I bought a refrigerator model 91C3R at Best Buy, and it's having excuse me, it's having ice maker problems and I can't solve it. They won't help me. What do I do? And you start to read all the comments from all the other people that bought the refrigerator. And it's pretty interesting because they're all like you. They've been trying desperately to get it fixed. And you go through like the 6 stages of grief. First, there's horror, there's anger, there's sadness, because you can't figure out what to do. But you keep looking because sooner or later, buried in all those comments about your refrigerator problem is going to be the know-it-all. The know-it-all is a good friend of Watchdog Nation, because the know-it-all is like that kid who sat in your first grade class and raised their hand every day. I know it, 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 to the teacher. And that know-it-all grew up, moved to Boise, Idaho, and, spent a lot of time researching it, found the point of vulnerability, and then brags to you what it is. And what I found is no problem that you have is unique. So the point of vulnerability is always something that a lot of people share. You just have to meet them on the internet. And what the know-it-all finds is the one thing that the company is really scared to know. And it's usually one of 5 things. It's a TV report about the product problem that's on YouTube. Number 2, it's an article in the newspaper, maybe by me. Number 3, it's an investigation by an attorney general in one of the 50 states. Number 4, it's a class action lawsuit, usually happening in California. And so you call this up on your screen. The know-it-all said, here's where it goes. And then you call, you get the power sheet, you call it up, but it's not like the last time. This time you ask for the supervisor. And I know you've all asked for the supervisor before, but this time it's different. The supervisor gets on. You get her name, you get her number, her employee ID, her title, place where she works. You tell her you have the date and the time written down. You tell her you talked to Elvis. You tell her you talked to Sheila, and say, this is the last call I'm making to the company, because if you can't fix it, Supervisor Annie Smith, AT&T Escalation Specialist, Atlanta, Georgia, on August 5th, 2020, I'm going to take it to the next level, which is that class action lawyer in California who's suing, or that columnist from the newspaper, the Watchdog in the morning news who wrote about it. Would you like me to send you a copy of his column? Or the Attorney General of Rhode Island who's investigating you. And what happens then is the supervisor says, would you please hold on? And now you have the power and they don't. And see, it all because you went to the internet and you looked for the point of vulnerability, the class action lawsuit, the investigation that's going on. And then when you talk to them on the phone, you dropped it and you tell the supervisor, and oh, by the way, I'm taping this call for customer quality control because I'll use it in my complaint. Let me say you don't have to tape the call. When I say tape the call, you just tell them you're taping the call. In Texas, it's legal for you to tape the call without telling the other party. But what I'm saying is to do these opposite. Don't even bother taping the call unless you want to, and just tell them you're taping the call, which is, you want them to know, you want them to think you are. So the way we tape now is, we have these little digital recorders. We put the phone on speaker, we record right next to it, and there's no wires or anything. So that's number 3, which is find their point of vulnerability and let them know and tell the supervisor you're taping the call. So those are really good. Now those are the first 3, but sometimes they don't really work, So let me just do the final 2 with you. And the next one is my favorite one. It's called Ask a Bunch of Questions. And it looks like a button because it actually is a button that I made years ago. Ask a bunch of questions. And the reason that I came up with this is because I noticed that Texans are very, very polite. You don't like to get into people's faces and, act rude and mean and horrible, which is sort of the way people acted back where I come from. So I got this idea that we need to act more like Lieutenant Columbo from Columbo TV series, where we ask a bunch of questions and then we pretend we're leaving and then we turn around and we ask just a couple more really hard questions. And that, usually brings us the information that we're supposed to know, because you've got to ask a lot of questions. You can't assume anything because people are lying to you, and their sales pitch is adjusted to psychology, and you're just walking in to buy a car. or refrigerator, and you can't compete with that kind of mentality. So let me show you exactly what happens when you do ask a bunch of questions, because right now I want to show you the symbol of American wealth, which is a Starbucks cup. And this right here is a symbol of American wealth, because if you can spend $7 on a cup of dirty water, you are really making a profit, and that's kind of what they do. So they have all these different sizes on the menu, but this large size that I'm showing you right now, it's not on the menu. It's so big. It's called the Trenta. And if you drink the Trenta, it's like, look at the size of this. You're going to die, you know? But what they do have on the menu are the next three sizes, and they have the Venti, which is their large, which is what Italian, and you know that's too much coffee maybe for somebody. So you tell them you want the medium, which is the Grande, which really kind of bothers me, because what does Grande mean in Spanish? It means large, but in Starbucks world they've changed it, so they've made Grande the medium, which you know I believe is just designed to confuse you. And the first time I went to Starbucks, I didn't know what a Venti was or a Grande, so I just told the barista, I want a small glass, a small coffee, please. And she said, we don't have small, we have short. No, she said, we have tall. And I said, I don't want a tall, I want a small. And she said, well, that's all we got. So this is the tall. These are the three sizes of cups that Starbucks has on the menu, okay? But in Watchdog Nation, if we're going to be like Detective Columbo, before we buy anything, even something as silly as a cup of coffee, we're going to go to the Google box and we're going to check it out. So if you type into the Google box, what's the secret size cup at Starbucks called, you get an answer, which I blurted out just a minute ago, which is not on the menu, but it's the opposite of tall. It's called a short. And you see the difference in the size between the two cups. You can get like a short of hot chocolate, you know, or a short of coffee we have flying off the ceiling like a chimichanga. But the short, which is much cheaper, is not on the menu, but it's on the internet. Sort of like In-N-Out Burger, which has all these things listed on the internet, but they aren't necessarily listed on the drive-through menu. So you can get a short, but you can also get a free cup of coffee if you use the right word. Does anybody know the right word? It starts with an S. I'm Googling it. How do I get free coffee at Starbucks? It's not a birthday or a senior thing. It's because at Starbucks, they have another secret cup that they keep under the menu, which is called the sample. And what I would do with the sample, when I would take it, I pretend to drink it and like it. I'd say, oh, I don't like that, that's bitter. Can I try a sample of something else? And I'd end up getting two samples flying off the ceiling like a chimichanga. You can get everything in Starbucks in a same-size cup for free, except for the Frappuccino. You know why you can't get a free Frappuccino in here? It's because those guys, they have another cup, see? They have a clear plastic cup. So the moral of the story is that these are what people order because it's what's on the menu, but this is what's hidden under the counter, you see? And the difference in price is humongous. So if you do that before you buy anything at all, you're going to find out things that you're not supposed to know. You're going to save yourself a lot of money. You're not going to fall for scams. All you got to do is act like Detective Columbo and just come back with a few more questions. And definitely use the Google box, because every piece of human knowledge has now been socked away onto the internet. And it's pretty easy to tell on product reviews and stuff who's lying and who's not. So let's say you've done all four of these principles of Watchdog Nation. You've checked them out, and you've made them accountable with a power sheet, and you found their point of vulnerability. I forgot to use my bell. And you ask a bunch of questions. Number 5 is when all else fails. It's called the nuclear option. Find their pressure point and squeeze. Okay, so this is the equivalent of you grabbing AT&T by the back of the neck and pushing their pressure point and squeezing, and that hurts. I know because it happened to me many years ago. I was a reporter in Philadelphia. A politician didn't like what I was writing about him, so he came up to me and he just grabbed me by the back of my neck and squeezed, and those pressure points hurt so much, and I kind of crumpled down to the ground, and he held me like that. And I was looking up, and all his goons were laughing. And then he let go, and my neck hurt for a week, and I was shocked. I mean, I didn't file a complaint with the police or anything, but that's the first and only time anybody ever really hurt me because of stuff that I wrote about in the paper. And now I think, well, how can I do that in Watchdog Nation? How can I, find a pressure point and squeeze? And it was really easy with me with AT&T if you followed my escapades with them, because I met with the CEO and I showed him all the complaints that I got from folks like you in a several month period. It was hundreds. And I gave him copies of the complaints. And I said to him, do you want me to send these complaints to the FCC or to you? That's squeezing his pressure point. And he said, send them to me. So ever since then, I've been sending every month all the complaints I get about AT&T to AT&T executive headquarters, finding their pressure point and squeeze. So here's how you do it. Let's say you bought a product that you don't like, or you're dealing with a realtor that you don't like. Maybe you didn't look up that realtor on the real estate commission before you hired them. And maybe you have a doctor that you don't like that hurt you somehow. You didn't Google the doctor before you went to the doctor and didn't see that he or she had some malpractice lawsuits against them. Or maybe you had a bad plumber experience. Or maybe you had a bad experience with your cable TV company. But the point is, you go back now and you think, who regulates these people? Who licenses them? Who permits them? Who identifies them? Who keeps records of them? All the different ways that a government keeps their hands on people who are licensed and regulated and audited, and the different ways. And you just go to the internet and you ask, you say, where's my internet? You say, dear Google, my home warranty company is not helping me. Who regulates home warranty companies in Texas? And the answer pops up. It's the Texas Real Estate Commission. Who knew that home warranty companies are regulated by the Texas Real Estate Commission? And it says on the webpage, we audit their books every 2 years and we reissue them a license. If you have any complaints about a home warranty company, click here and tell us all about it. And so, you found out on the internet who was the licensor, the registrator, the auditor, the permitter of that problem company that you had. And you then file a complaint by submitting it online. It flies through the air, and it's like got a state of Texas number on it, which is serious. A letter arrives at the home warranty company, which you've called a number of times to try and get them to fix whatever, refrigerator or whatever, and they refused. And so then the home warranty company calls you back on the phone and they say, Mr. Lieber, this is Calvin from Home Warranty, and I just want you to know that we want to send Floyd over to your house tomorrow to fix that refrigerator. And you say, well, I've been calling you for months. How come you guys are finally doing it? And you say, well, we just got a letter from the Texas Real Estate Commission, which regulates us. And they said that they wanted to know the result of this. So we want to come over and fix it so that you'll drop the complaint against us, because the auditors are coming in and our license is up for renewal. And you know what you say? You say, would you please hold on? Because now you have 100% of the power and they have no power, because you have filed a complaint with the regulator and the letter came in, and you're that 1 out of 100 customers that doesn't take no for an answer, that knows what to do, have the recordings, have the power sheet, know who the point of vulnerability was, and then go to the nuclear option, which is their pressure point and squeeze. Now, there are many, many more principles of Watchdog Nation, but those are the 5 most important. If you're interested in learning more, this is my book. It's called Dave Lieber's Watchdog Nation. You can see I've gone gray since the picture was taken when the book first came out in 2008. The only place to get it, the latest edition, is at my website, Watchdog Nation. It costs $20 plus tax and shipping, and it saves you thousands of dollars, I promise. I got some of the reviews here on Amazon when it came out. They said I did what he suggested, and within a week I got my problem, something I've worked years to get. This is well worth the price. This particular book is a tool for anybody who has ever felt scammed, taken, or ripped off. Common sense solutions, everyday scams are incredibly helpful. So I'm really proud of the book. It's helped a lot of people. I'm also wanted to show you a couple more things here. you know, this whole idea of being a watchdog in our society is really kind of a new concept. They don't really teach it that well, but you got to start early. This is a picture of a story I wrote about a woman who was in the maternity ward, and she was about to have a baby, and she was on the phone with AT&T trying to get her bill covered. And then when the baby was born, you know, she dressed him up, you see, as a little, she calls him watch puppy. And as he grows older, his watchdog uniform grows old with him too. So the point of that is you start them early and let's teach them and all that. Now, I also have something for everybody in the audience. I have Watchdog ID cards. And everybody who's on the call will be able to get one of these for free. I'll tell you how in a second. But these cards are really great because, you know, they say you're a member of Watchdog Nation and they have my name, my phone number, my address on the back. And you put it in your purse or your wallet and you forget about it. But then 6 months from now, when you're getting hurt at the car dealership, when he won't give you your car back because you're not paying this high rate that he never got you to agree to, you say, look, I pull out my card and you say, do you know who I am? I'm friends with the watchdog of the Dallas Morning News, and I'm a member of his group. And I have his phone number here, and he told me that if there's ever anything going wrong like this that he might want to write about in the newspaper or put it on the internet with your name forever, you know, I'm going to tell him. And then you turn and go, do you want to mess with me? Do you want to mess with me? And so if you have arthritis, you can use two hands to mess. So everybody's got one of these cards. This is like a fail-safe backstop for when things really get bad. You just tell them you know me and you know how to do this and you're going to let me know about it. And sometimes people do, and we try and figure out ways to stop the problem. So I'm going to swear you all in as citizens of Watchdog Nation, and then we'll be done. But before I do, I just have a few quick notes for you. My column, you know, runs Fridays and Sundays in the print edition, and you can find it at dallasnews.com/watchdog. If you're not a subscriber, I hope you'll subscribe because that's really what we need to keep going. Local journalism is really where it's at. I want to thank you for joining us. The Watchdog Nation cards will come to you you'll get an email when this event is over, and it'll ask you for your name and address. So we'll mail you the cards free of charge. And if you need one or two for your wife and a couple for your kids, just tell us you need 4. And you basically, it's signed already by me, and you take a flare and you punch your name in, and then you put it in your purse and you forget about it. We have these DMN download events, and it comes out in a Tuesday newsletter. So we do this all the time. So check that, the DMN download. We've got the coronavirus newsletter that comes out. So please sign up for that because that's really excellent. And something like 250,000 people are getting that. My newsletter comes out Wednesday nights. And let's see. So I guess right now what I need to do is I need to swear you in as a citizen of Watchdog Nation. And there's an oath. And the thing about the oath is there's no penalty of perjury or forgery or any other kind of perjury. You know, it's just a fun oath. So if you raise your right hand and repeat after me, I do solemnly swear that as a new citizen of Watchdog Nation, I will preserve, protect, and defend the rights of myself, my family, and my friends against what President Bush called the evildoers. So congratulations. You are now all citizens of Watchdog Nation. And come get your cards through the email and stick with me in the newspaper and stay out of trouble. And I want to thank you. And remember, this was in honor of my hero, Pete Hamill, who died today. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for Dallas Morning News for sponsoring the Watchdog Nation citizenship event. Thank you.